All right, we are here for We Records 21 through 25. Don't forget, if you want the videos so you can read along, TommySalmons.com. And you can catch all my podcasts and everything I do at TommySalmons.com. That'll lead you straight to my Substack. You can subscribe for free, or you can choose to donate monthly, and I will take your money. I am perfectly happy with that. And Scott Horton Academy is up and running. So go check out the Scott Horton Academy. You can find links at the libertarianinstitute.org or I think it's scotthortonacademy.org or com. I can tell you. I should have had this pulled up already. Shouldn't I have? Shouldn't I have? I should have. But yep, he's got a lot of courses already up at the Scott Horton Academy. And yeah, it's scotthortonacademy.com. He's got a lot of courses already up there and he's got more to come. You can get yearly subscriptions or lifetime subscriptions or whatever subscription type you prefer. So go to scotthortonacademy.com. I should know that by now. All right. So we are beginning. Record 21. The Duty of an Author. The Ice Swells. The Most Difficult Love. Yesterday was her day, and again she did not come. Again there came her incoherent note, explaining nothing. But I am tranquil, perfectly tranquil. If I act as I am told to do in the note, if I go to the controller on duty, produce the pink check, and then having lowered the curtains, if I sit alone in my room, I do all this not because I have no power to act contrary to her desire. That seems funny. Decidedly not. It is quite simple. Separated from all curative, plaster like smiles, I am enabled quietly to write these very lines. This first. And second, I am afraid to lose in her, in I 330, perhaps the only clue I shall ever have to an understanding of all the unknowns, like the story of the cupboard or my temporary death, for instance. To understand, to discover these unknowns as the author of these records, I feel to be my simple duty. Moreover, the unknown is naturally the enemy of man. And Homo sapiens only then becomes man in the complete sense of the word, when his punctuation includes no question marks, only exclamation points, commas, and periods. Thus guided by what seems to me my simple duty as an author, I took an arrow today at 16 o'clock and went to the ancient house. A strong wind was blowing against me. The arrow advanced with difficulty through the thicket of air. Its transparent branches whistling and whipping, the city below seemed a heap of blue rocks of ice. Suddenly a cloud, a swift oblique shadow, the ice became leaden, it swelled. As in springtime, when you happen to stand at the shore and wait, in one more minute everything will move and pull and crack. But the minute passes and the ice remains motionless. You feel as though you yourself are swelling. Your heart beats more restlessly, more frequently. But why do I write about all this? And whence all these strange sensations? For is there such an iceberg as could ever break the most lucid, solid crystal of our life? At the entrance of the ancient house, I found no one. I went around it and found the old janitress near the green wall. She held her hand above her eyes, looking upward, beyond the wall, the sharp black triangles of some birds. They would rush, cawing, in an onslaught on the invisible fence of electric waves, and as they felt the electricity against their breasts, they would recoil and soar once more beyond the wall. I noticed oblique, swift shadows on the dark, wrinkled face, a quick glance at me. Nobody here. Nobody. Nobody. No. And no use coming here. In what respect is it no use? And what a strange idea to consider me somebody's shadow. Perhaps all of you are only my shadows. Did I not populate these pages, which only recently were white quadrangular deserts with you? Without me, could they, whom I shall guide over the narrow path of my lines, could they ever see you? Of course, I did not say all this to the old woman. From experience, I know that the most torturing thing is to inoculate someone with a doubt as to the fact that he or she is a three dimensional reality and not some other reality. I remarked only, quite dryly, that her business was to open the gate, and she let me into the courtyard. It was empty, quiet. The wind remained beyond the walls, distant as on that day when, shoulder to shoulder, two like one, we came out from beneath, from the corridors, if it ever really happened. I walked under stone arches. My steps resounded against the damp vaults and fell behind me, sounding as though someone were continually following me. The yellow walls with patches of red brick were watching me through their square spectacles, windows watching me open the squeaky doors of a barn, look into corners, nooks, and hidden places. A gate in the fence in a lonely spot, the monument of the 200 years, war. From the ground, naked stone ribs were sticking out, the yellow jaws of the wall, an ancient oven with a chimney like a ship petrified forever among red brick waves. It seemed to me that I had seen those yellow teeth once before. I saw them still dimly in my mind, as at the bottom of a barrel, through water, and I began to search. I fell into caves occasionally. I stumbled over stones. Rusty jaws caught my uniform a few times. Salt drops of sweat ran from my forehead into my eyes. Nowhere could I find that exit from below, from the corridors, nowhere. There was none. Well, perhaps it was better that it happened so. Probably all that was only one of my absurd dreams. Tired out, covered with cobwebs and dust, I opened the gate to return to the main yard when suddenly a rustle behind me, splashing steps, and there before me were the pink wing like ears and the double curved smile of S. Half closing his eyes, he bored his little drills into me and asked, "Taking a walk?" I was silent. My arms were heavy. "Well, do you feel better now?" "Yes, thank you. I think I am becoming normal again." He let me go. He lifted his eyes, looked upward, and I noticed his Adam's apple for the first time. It resembles a broken spring sticking out from beneath the upholstery of a couch. Above us, not very high, about 50 meters, arrows were buzzing. By their low, slow flight and by the observation tubes which hung down, I recognized them. They were the arrows of the Guardians. But there were not two or three as usual. There were about 10 or 12. I regret to have to confine myself to an approximate figure. "Why are there so many today?" I dared to ask S. "Why? Hmm. A real physician begins to treat a patient when he is still well, but on the way to becoming sick tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or within a week. Prophylaxis, yes?" He nodded and went splashing over the stones of the yard. Then he turned his head and said over his shoulder, "Be careful." Again I was alone, silence, emptiness, far beyond the green wall, the birds and the wind. What did he mean? My arrow ran very fast with the wind, light and heavy shadows from the clouds. Below, blue cupolas, cubes of glass ice were becoming leaden and swelling. The same evening, I took up my pen just now in order to write upon these pages a few thoughts which, it seems to me, will prove useful to you, my readers. These thoughts are concerned with the great day of unanimity, which is now not far away. But as I sat down, I discovered that I could not write at present. Instead, I sit and listen to the wind beating the glass with its dark wings. All the while, I am busy looking about and I am waiting, expecting what? I do not know. So I was very glad when I saw the brownish pink gills enter my room. Heartily glad, I might say. She sat down and innocently smoothed a fold of her uniform that fell between her knees, and very soon she pasted upon me, all over me, a host of smiles, a bit of a smile on each crack of my face, and this gave me pleasant sensations, as if I were tightly bound like an infant of the ancients in a swaddling cloth. Imagine, today when I entered the classroom, she works in the child education refinery. I suddenly noticed a caricature upon the blackboard. Indeed, I assure you, they had pictured me in the form of a fish. Perhaps I really. "No, no, why do you say that?" I hastily exclaimed. When one was near her, it was clear indeed that she had nothing resembling gills. No, when I referred to gills in these pages, I was certainly irreverent. Oh, after all, it does not matter. But the act is such, think of it. Of course, I called the guardians at once. I love children very much, and I think that the most difficult and most exalted love is cruelty. You understand me, of course. Certainly. Her sentence so closely resembled my thoughts. I could not refrain from reading to her a passage from my record number 20, beginning quietly, metallically, distinctly do the thoughts, etc. I felt her brownish pink cheeks twitching and coming closer and closer to me. Suddenly, I felt in my hands her firm, dry, even slightly prickling fingers. Give this time to me, please. I shall have it transcribed and make the children learn it by heart. Not only your Venerians need all this, but we ourselves right now, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. She glanced around and said in a very low voice, Have you heard? They say that on the day of unanimity, I sprang to my feet. What? What do they say? What on the day of unanimity? The coziness of my room, its very walls, seemed to have vanished. I felt myself thrown outside, where the tremendous shaggy wind was tossing about, and where the slanting clouds of dusk were descending lower and lower. You boldly and firmly grasped me by the shoulders. I even noticed how her fingers, responding to my emotion, trembled slightly. Sit down, dear, and don't be upset. They say many things. Must we believe them all? Moreover, if only you need me, I shall be near you on that day. I shall leave the school children with someone else, and I shall stay with you. For you, dear, you too are a child, and you need. No, no, I raise my hands in protest. Not for anything. You really think then that I am a child and that I cannot do without a. Oh, no, not for anything in the world. I must confess, I had other plans for that day. She smiled. The wording of that smile apparently was, Oh, what a stubborn boy. She sat down, eyelids lowered. Her hands modestly busied themselves with fixing the fold of the uniform, which fell again between her knees. And suddenly, about something entirely different, she said, I think I must decide, for your sake. But I implore you, do not hurry me. I must think it over. I did not hurry her, although I realized that I ought to have been delighted, as there is no greater honor than to crown someone's evening years. All night, strange wings were about. I walked and protected my head with my hands from those wings, and a chair, not like ours, but an ancient chair, came in with a horse like gait. First the right foreleg and left hind leg, then the left foreleg and the right hind leg. It rushed to my bed and crawled into it, and I liked that wooden chair, although it made me uncomfortable and caused me some pain. It is very strange. Is it really impossible to find any cure for this dream sickness or to make it rational, perhaps even useful? Record 22. The benumbed waves. Everything is improving. I am a microbe. Please imagine that you stand at the seashore. The waves go rhythmically up and up, down, up. Suddenly, when they have risen, they remain in that position, benumbed, torpid. It was just as weird and unnatural when everything became confused and our regular walk, which is prescribed by the tables, suddenly came to an end. The last time such a thing happened was 119 years ago, when, according to our historians, a meteorite fell hissing and fuming into the very midst of the marchers. We were walking yesterday as usual, that is, like warriors on the Assyrian monuments, 1,000 heads and two composite integrated legs, and two swinging integrated arms. At the end of the avenue where the accumulating tower was formidably resounding, a quadrangle appeared. On the sides, in front and behind, guards. In the center, three numbers. Their uniforms were already stripped of the Golden State badge. Everything was painfully clear. The enormous dial on the top of the tower looked like a face. It bent down from the clouds, and spitting down its seconds, it waited with indifference. It showed 6 minutes past 13 exactly. There was some confusion in the quadrangle. I was very close, and I saw the most minute details. I clearly remember a thin, long neck, and on the temple, a confused net of small blue veins like rivers on the map of a small, unfamiliar world. And that unknown world was apparently still a very young man. He evidently noticed someone in our ranks. He stopped, rose up upon his tiptoes, and stretched his neck. One of the guards snapped his back with the bluish spark of the electric whip. He squealed in a thin voice like a puppy. The distinct snaps followed each other at intervals of approximately 2 seconds. A snap and a squeal, a snap and a squeal. We continued to walk as usual, rhythmically, in our Assyrian manner. I watched the graceful zigzags of the electric sparks and thought, human society is constantly improving as it should. How ugly a tool was the ancient whip, and how much beauty there is. At that moment, like a nut flying from the wheel, revolving at full speed, a female number, thin, flexible, intense, tore herself from our rows and with a cry, "Enough! Don't you dare!" She threw herself straight into the quadrangle. It was like the meteorite of 119 years ago. Our march came to a standstill, and our rows appeared like the gray crests of waves frozen by sudden cold. For a second, I looked at the woman's figure with the eye of a stranger, as all the others did. She was no number any longer. She was only a human being, and she existed for us only as a substantiation of the insult which she cast upon the United States. But emotion of hers, her bending while twisting to the left upon her hips, revealed to me clearly who she was. I knew that body, flexible as a whip. My eyes, my lips, my hands knew it. At that moment, I was absolutely certain. Two of the guards dashed to catch her. One more moment, and that limpid mirror like point on the pavement would have become the point of meeting of their trajectories, and she would have been caught. My heart fell, stopped, without thinking whether it was permissible or not, whether it was reasonable or absurd. I threw myself straight to that point. I felt thousands of eyes bulging with horror fixed upon me, but that only added a sort of desperately joyful power to that wild being with hairy paws which arose in me and ran faster and faster. Two more steps. She turned around. I saw a quivering face covered with freckles, red eyebrows. It was not she, not I 330. A rabid, quivering joy took hold of me. I wanted to shout something like, "Catch her! Get her that!" But I heard only my whisper. A heavy hand was already upon my shoulder. I was caught and led away. I tried to explain to them, but listen, you must understand that I thought that. But could I explain even to myself all the sickness which have described in these pages? My light went out. I waited obediently. As a leaf that is torn from its branch by a sudden gust of wind falls humbly, but on its way down turns and tries to catch every little branch, every fork, every knot. So I tried to catch every one of the silent globe like heads, or the transparent ice of the walls, or the blue needle of the accumulating tower which seemed to pierce the clouds. At that moment, when a heavy curtain was about to separate me from this beautiful world, I noticed not far away a familiar, enormous head gliding over the mirror surface of the pavement and wagging its wing like ears. I heard a familiar, flat voice. I deem it my duty to testify that number D503 is ill and is unable to regulate his emotions. Moreover, I am sure that he was led by natural indignation. "Yes, yes," I exclaimed. I even shouted, "Catch her!" From behind me, you did not shout anything. "No, but I wanted to. I swear by the well doer I wanted to." For a second, I was bored through by the gray, cold drill eyes. I don't know whether he believed that what I said was the truth, almost, or whether he had some secret reason for sparing me for a while. But he wrote a short note, handed it to one of those who had held me, and again I was free. That is, I was again included in the orderly, endless Assyrian rows of numbers. The quadrangle, the freckled face, and the temple with the map of blue veinlets disappeared forever around the corner. We walked again, a million-headed body, and in each one of us resided that humble joyfulness with which, in all probability, molecules, atoms, and phagocytes live. I guess that's how you say that. In the ancient days, the Christians understood this feeling. They are they are our only, though very imperfect, direct forerunners. The greatness of the Church of the United Flock was known to them. They knew that resignation is virtue and pride a vice, that we is from God, I from the devil. I was walking, keeping step with the others, yet separated from them. I was still trembling from the emotion just felt, like a bridge over which a thundering ancient steel train has passed a moment before. I felt myself. To feel oneself, to be conscious of one's personality, is the lot of an eye inflamed by a cinder, or an infected finger, or a bad tooth. A healthy eye or finger or tooth is not felt. It is non existent, as it were. Is it not clear, then, that consciously of oneself is a sickness? Apparently, I am no longer a phagocyte, which quietly, in a businesslike way, devours microbes, microbes with freckled faces and blue temples. Apparently, I am myself a microbe, and she too, I-330, is a microbe, a wonderful diabolic microbe. It is quite possible that there are already thousands of such microbes among us, still pretending to be phagocytes, as I pretend. What if today's accident, although in itself not important, is only a beginning, only the first meteorite of a shower of burning and thundering stones, which the infinite may have poured out upon our glass paradise? Record 23, Flowers, the disillusion of a crystal, if only. They say there are flowers that bloom only once in 100 years. Why not suppose the existence of flowers that bloom only once in 1,000 years? We may have known nothing about them until now, only because today is the once in 1,000 years. Happy and dizzy, I walked downstairs to the controller on duty. And quickly under my gaze, all around me, silently, the 1,000-year-old buds burst, and everything was blooming: armchairs, shoes, golden badges, electric bulbs, someone's dark, heavy eyes, the polished columns of the banisters, the handkerchief which someone had lost on the stairs, the small, ink blotted desk of the controller, in the tender, brown, somewhat freckled cheeks of you. Everything seemed not ordinary, but new, tender, rosy, moist. You took the pink stub from me while the blue, aromatic moon, hanging from an unseen branch, shone through the glass of the wall and over the head of you. With a solemn gesture, I pointed my finger and said, "The moon, you see?" You glanced at me, then at the number of the stub, and again made that familiar, charmingly innocent movement with which she fixes the fold of the unif between her knees. You look abnormal and ill, dear. Abnormality and illness are the same thing. You are killing yourself, and no one would tell you that. No one. That no one was certainly equivalent to the number on the stub I-330. This thought was confirmed by an ink blot which fell close to the figure 330. Dear, wonderful you, you are right, of course. I am not reasonable. I am sick. I have a soul. I am a microbe. But is blooming not a sickness? Is it not painful when the buds are bursting? And don't you think that spermatozoa are the most terrible of all microbes? Back upstairs to my room in the widely open cup of the armchair was I-330. I on the floor embracing her limbs, my head on her lap. We were silent. Everything was silent. Only the pulse was audible. Like a crystal, I was dissolving in her, in I-330. I felt most distinctly how the polished facets which limited me in space were slowly thawing, melting away. I was dissolving in her lap, in her, and I became at once smaller and larger, unembraceable. For she was not she, but the whole universe. For a second, I, in that armchair near the bed, transfixed with joy, we were one. And the wonderfully smiling old woman at the gate of the ancient house, and the wild debris beyond the green wall, and some strange silver wreckage on a black background, dozing like the old woman, and the slam of a door in the distance, all this was within me, was listening to my pulse, and soaring through the happiest of seconds. In absurd, confused, overflowing words, I attempted to tell her that I was a crystal and that there was a door in me and that I felt how happy the armchair was. But something nonsensical came out of the attempt and I stopped. I was ashamed. And suddenly, dear I, forgive me. I understand nothing. I talk so foolishly. And why should you think that foolishness is not fine? If we had taken pains to educate human foolishness through centuries, as we have done with our intelligence, it might perhaps have been transformed into something very precious. And I think she is right. How could she be wrong at that moment? And for this foolishness of yours and for what you did yesterday during the walk, I love you the more, much more. Then why did you torture me? Why would you not come? Why did you send me the pink check and make me? Perhaps I wanted to test you. Perhaps I must be sure that you will do anything I wish, that you are completely mine. Yes, completely. She took my face, my whole self, between her palms, lifted my head. And how about, it is the duty of every honest number, eh? Sweet, sharp, white teeth, a smile. In the open cup of the armchair, she was like a bee, sting and honey combined. Yes, duty. I turned over in my mind the pages of my records. Indeed, there is not a thought about the fact that, strictly speaking, I should. I was silent, exaltedly, and probably stupidly. I smiled. Looking into the pupils of her eyes, I followed first one eye and then the other, and in each of them I saw myself, a millimetric self imprisoned in those tiny rainbow cells. Then again the lips and the sweet pain of blooming. In each number of the United States, there is an unseen metronome that tick tocks silently, without looking, At the clock, we know exactly the time of day within 5 minutes. But now my metronome had stopped, and I did not know how much time had passed. In fright, I grasped my badge with its clock from under the pillow. Glory be to the well doer. I had 20 minutes more. But those minutes were such tiny, short ones, they ran. And I wanted to tell her so many things. I wanted to tell her all about myself, about the letter from O, and about that terrible evening when I gave her a child, and for some reason also about my childhood, about our mathematician Plappa, and about the square root of -1, and how when I attended the glorification on the day of unanimity for the first time in my life, I wept bitterly because there was an ink stain on my unif on such a holy day. I-330 lifted her head. She leaned on her elbow in the corner of her lips, two long, sharp lines in the dark angle of lifted eyebrows across. Perhaps on that day her brow grew darker. She took my hand and pressed it hard. Tell me, will you ever forget me? Will you always remember me? But why such talk? What is it, I dear? She was silent, and her eyes were already sliding past me, through me, away into the distance. I suddenly heard the wind beating the glass with its enormous wings. Of course it had been blowing all the while, but I had not noticed it until then. And for some reason, those cawing birds over the green wall came to my mind. I-330 shook her head with a gesture of throwing something off. Once more, she touched me for a second with her whole body, as an arrow before landing touches the ground for a second, with all the tension of a recoiling spring. Well, give me my stockings, quick. The stockings were on the desk, on the open manuscript of page 124. Being in haste, I caught some of the pages and they were scattered over the floor so that it was hard to put them back in the proper order. Moreover, even if I put them in that order, there will be no real order. There are obstacles to that anyway, some undiscoverable unknowns. I can't bear it, I said. You are here near me, yet you seem to be behind an opaque ancient wall. Through that wall, I hear a rustle and voices. I cannot make out the words. I don't know what is there. I cannot bear it. You seem always to withhold something from me. You have never told me what kind of place it was where I found myself that day beneath the ancient house. Where did those corridors lead? Why was the doctor there? Or perhaps all that never happened. I-330 put her hands on my shoulders and slowly entered deeply into my eyes. You want to know all? Yes, I do. And you would not be afraid to follow me anywhere? Whenever, wherever I should lead you? Anywhere. All right then. I promise you, after the holiday, if only. Oh, yes, there is your integral. I always forget to ask, will it soon be completed? No, if only what? Again, if only what? She already, she already at the door. You shall see. I was alone again. All that she left behind her was a barely perceptible scent, similar to that of a sweet, dry yellow dust of flowers from behind the green wall. Also sunk deeply within me question marks like small hooks, similar to those the ancients used for fishing, vied the prehistoric museum. Maybe Vide, probably Vide, the prehistoric museum. Why did she suddenly ask about the integral? Record 24. The limit of the function, Easter, to cross out everything. I am like a motor set in motion at a speed of too many revolutions per second. The bearings have become too hot, and in one more minute, the molten metal will begin to drip and everything will go to the devil. Cold water, quick, some logic. I pour on pailfuls of it, but my logic merely sizzles on the hot metal and disappears into the air in the form of vapor. Of course, it is clear that in order to establish the true meaning of a function, one must establish its limit. It is also clear that yesterday's disillusion in the universe, taken to its limit, is death. For death is exactly the most complete dissolution of the self in the universe. Hence, L equals F. D. Love is the function of death. Yes, exactly, exactly. That is why I'm afraid of I-330. I struggle against her. I don't want, but what is it that within me I don't want to and I want to stand side by side? That is the chief horror of the matter. I continue to long for that happy death of yesterday. The horror of it is that even now, when I have integrated the logical function, when it becomes evident that that function contains death hidden within it, still I long for it with my lips, my arms, my heart, with every millimeter. Tomorrow is the day of unanimity. She will certainly be there, and I shall see her, though from a distance. That distance will be painful to me, for I am inevitably drawn close to her, so that her hands, her shoulder, her hair, I long for even that pain. Let it come, great well-doer. How absurd to desire pain. Who is ignorant of the simple fact that pains are negative items that reduce that sum total we call happiness? Consequently, well, no, consequently, emptiness, nakedness. The same evening, through the glass wall of the house, I see a disquieting, windy, feverishly pink sunset. I move on my armchair to avoid that pinkness and turn over these pages, and I find I am forgetting that I write this not for myself, but for you, unknown people whom I love and pity, for you who still lag centuries behind below. Let me tell you about the day of unanimity, about that great day. I think it is for us what Easter was for the ancients. I remember I used to prepare an hour calendar on the eve of that day. Solemnly, I would cross out every time the figure of the hour elapsed. Nearer by 1 hour, 1 hour less to wait. If I were certain that nobody would discover it, I assure you I should now, too, make out such a calendar and carry it with me, and I should watch how many hours remain until tomorrow, when I shall see, at least from a distance. Excuse me. I was interrupted. They brought me a new uniform from the shop. As is customary, new uniforms are given to us for tomorrow's celebration. Steps in the hall, exclamations of joy, noises. I shall continue. Tomorrow I shall see the same spectacle which we see year after year, and which always awakes in us fresh emotions, as if we saw it for the first time, an impressive throng of piously lifted arms. Tomorrow is the day of yearly election of the well-doer. Tomorrow we shall again hand over to our well-doer the keys to the impregnable fortress of our happiness. Certainly this in no way resembles the disorderly, unorganized elections days of the ancients, on which it seems so funny. They did not even know in advance the results of the election. To build a state on some non discountable contingencies, to build blindly, what could be more nonsensical? Yet centuries had to pass before this was understood. Needless to say, in this respect, as in all others, we have no place for contingencies. Nothing unexpected can happen. The elections themselves have rather a symbolic meaning. They remind us that we are a united, powerful organism of millions of cells, that to use the language of the gospel of the ancients, we are a united church. The history of the United States knows not a single case in which, upon this solemn day, even a solitary voice has dared to violate the magnificent unison. They say that the ancients used to conduct their elections secretly, stealthily, like thieves. Some of our historians even assert that they would come to the electoral celebrations completely masked. Imagine the weird, fantastic spectacle. Night, a plaza, along the walls, the stealthily creeping figures covered with mantles, the red flame of torches dancing in the wind. Why was such secrecy necessary? It has never been satisfactorily explained. Probably it resulted from the fact that elections were associated with some mystic and superstitious, perhaps even criminal ceremonies. We have nothing to conceal or to be ashamed of. We celebrate our election openly, honestly, in daylight. I see them all vote for the well-doer, and everybody sees me vote for the well-doer. How could it be otherwise, since all and I are one? We. How ennobling. Oh, that's weird. How ennobling, sincere, lofty this is, compared with the cowardly, thievish secrecy of the ancients, and how much more expedient for even admitting for a moment the impossible that is the outbreak of some dissonance in our customary unity. Our unseen guardians are always right there among us, are they not, to register the numbers who might fall into error and save them from any further false steps? The United States is theirs, the numbers, and besides, through the wall to my left, a she number before the mirror door of the closet. She is hastily unbuttoning her uniform. For a second, swiftly, eyes, lips, too sharp, pink, the curtains fell. Within me, all that happened yesterday instantly awoke, and now I no longer know what I meant to say by besides. I no longer wish to. I cannot. I want one thing. I want I 330. I want her every minute. every second to be with me, with no one else. All that I wrote about unanimity is of no value. It is not what I want. I have no desire to cross it out, to tear it to pieces and throw it away. For I know, be it a sacrilege, yet it is the truth, that a glorious day is possible only with her, and only when we are side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Without her, tomorrow's sun will appear to me only as a little circle cut out of a tin sheet, and the sky a sheet of tin painted blue. And I myself, I snatched the telephone receiver. I-330, are you there? Yes, it is I. Why so late? Perhaps not too late yet. I want to ask you. I want you to be with me tomorrow, dear. I said dear in a very low voice, and for some reason a thing I saw this morning at the docks flashed through my mind. Just for fun, someone had put a watch under the 100-ton sledgehammer, a swing, a breath of wind in the face, and the silent 100-ton knife-like weight on the breakable watch. A silence. I thought I heard someone's whisper in I-330's room. Then her voice. No, I cannot. Of course you understand that I myself. No, I cannot. Why? You shall see tomorrow. Night. Record 25. Excuse me. The descent from heaven, the greatest catastrophe in history, the known is ended. At the beginning, all arose, and the hymn, like a solemn mantle, slowly waved above our heads. Hundreds of tubes of the musical tower, and millions of human voices. For a second, I forgot everything. I forgot that alarming something at which I-330 had hinted in connection with today's celebration. I think I even forgot about her. At that moment, I was the very same little boy who once wept because of a tiny ink stain on his unif, which no one else could see. Even if no one else sees that, I am covered with black, ineffaceable stains. I know it, don't I? I know that there should be no place for a criminal like me among these frank, open faces. What if I should rush forward and shout out everything about myself all at once? The end might follow. Let it happen. At least for a second, I would feel myself clear and clean and senseless, like that innocent blue sky. All eyes were directed upward, and the pure morning blue, still moist with the tears of night, a small dark spot appeared. Now it was dark, now bathed in the rays of the sun. It was he, descending to us from the sky. He, the new Jehovah, in an arrow. He, as wise and as lovingly cruel as the Jehovah of the ancients. Nearer and nearer. He came, and higher toward him were drawn millions of hearts. Already he saw us, and in my mind with him I looked over everything from the heights, concentric circles of stands marked with dotted blue lines of units, like circles of a spider web strewn with microscopic suns, the shining badges, and in the center the wise white spider would soon occupy his place, the well-doer clad in white, the well-doer who wisely tangled our hands and feet in the salutary net of happiness. His magnificent descent from the sky was accomplished. The brassy hymn came to silence. All sat down. At once I perceived that everything was really a very thin spider web, the threads of which were stretched tense and trembling. And it seemed that in a moment those threads might break in something improbable. I half rose and looked around, and I met many lovingly worried eyes which passed from one face to another. I saw someone lifting his hand and almost imperceptibly waving his fingers. He was making signs to another. The latter replied with a similar finger sign, and a third. I understood they were the guardians. I understood they were alarmed by something. The spider web was stretched and trembling, and within me, as if tuned to the same wavelength within me, there was a corresponding quiver. On the platform, a poet was reciting his pre-electoral ode. I could not hear a single word. I only felt the rhythmic swing of the hexametric pendulum. And with its every motion, I felt now nearer and nearer. There was approaching some hour set for. I continued to turn over face after face like pages, but I could not find the one, the only one I was seeking, the one I needed to find at once, as soon as possible, for one more swing of the pendulum, and It was he. Certainly it was he. Below, past the main platform, gliding over the sparkling glass, the ear wings flapped by. The running body gave a reflection of a double curved S, like a nose which was rolling towards some of the intricate passages among the stands. S, I-330. There is some thread between them. I have always felt some thread between them. I don't know yet what that thread is, but someday I shall entangle it. I fixed my gaze on him. He was rushing farther away. Behind him, that invisible thread. There he stopped. There I was pierced, twisting together into a knot, as if by a lightning like many volted electric discharge. In my row, not more than 40 degrees from me, S stopped and bowed. I saw I-330, and beside her the smiling, repellent, negro-lipped R-13. My first thought was to rush to her and cry, "Why with him? Why did you not want—" But the salutary, invisible spiderweb bound fast my hands and feet, so gritting my teeth. I sat stiff as iron, my gaze fixed upon them, a sharp physical pain at my heart. I remember my thought, if not physical causes produce physical pain, if non-physical causes produce physical pain, then it is clear that I regret that I did not come to any conclusion. I remember only that something about heart flashed through my mind, a purely nonsensical ancient expression. His heart fell into his boots, passed through my head. My heart sank. The hexameter came to an end. It was about to start. What it? The 5 minute pre election recess established by custom. The custom established pre electional silence. But this time it was not that pious, really prayer like silence that it usually was. This time it was like the ancient days when the sky, still untamed, would roar from time to time with its storms. It was like the lull before the storm of the ancient days. The air seemed to be made of transparent, vaporized cast iron. You wanted to breathe with your mouth wide open. My hearing, intense to the point of pain, registered from behind a mouse like, gnawing, worried whisper. Without lifting my eyes, I saw those two, I-330 and R-13, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and on my knees, my trembling, foreign, hateful, hairy hands. Everybody was holding a badge with a clock in his hands. 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes. From the main platform, a cast iron slow voice. Those in favor shall lift their hands. If only I dared look straight into his eyes as I always had. If only I could think devotedly. Here I am, my whole self. Take me. But now I did not dare. I had to make an effort to raise my hand as if my joints were rusty. The whisper of millions of hands, someone subdued. Ah, and I felt something was coming, falling heavily, but I could not understand what it was, and I did not have the strength or courage to take a look. Those opposed? This was always the most magnificent moment of our celebration. All would remain sitting motionless, joyfully bowing their heads under the salutary yoke of that number of numbers. But now, to my horror again, I heard a rustle, light as a sigh, yet it was even more distinct than the brass tube of the hymn. Thus, the last sigh in a man's life. Around him, people with their faces pale and with drops of cold sweat upon their foreheads. I lifted my eyes and it took 1/100th of a second only. I saw thousands of hands arise, opposed, and fall back. I saw the pale, cross-marked face of I-330 in her lifted hand. Darkness came upon my eyes. Another 100th of a second. Silence. Quiet. The pulse. Then, as if at the sign of some mad conductor, from all over the stands, a rattling, a shouting, a whirlwind of eunuchs lifted by the rush, the perplexed figures of the guardians running to and fro, someone's heels in the air near my eyes, and close to those heels someone's wide open mouth tearing itself in an inaudible scream. For some reason, this picture remains particularly distinct in my memory. Thousands of mouths noisily yelling, as if on the screen of a monstrous cinema, also as if on a screen somewhere below at a distance, for a second, 090, pressed against the wall in a passage, her lips white, defending her abdomen with her crossed arms. She disappeared as if washed away by a wave, or else I simply forgot her because this was not on the screen anymore, but within me, within my compressed heart, within the rapidly pulsating temples. Over my head, somewhat to the left, R-13 suddenly jumped upon a bench, all sprinkling red, rabid. In his arms was I-330, pale, her uniform torn from shoulder to breast, red blood on white. She held him firmly around the neck, and he, with huge leaps from bench to bench, repellent and agile, like a gorilla, was carrying her upward away. As if it were in a fire of ancient days, everything became red around me. Only one thing in my head: to jump after them, to catch them. At this moment, I cannot explain to myself the source of that strength within me. But like a battering ram, I broke through the crowd, over somebody's shoulders, over a bench, and I was there in a moment and caught R13 by the collar. Don't you dare, don't you dare, I say, immediately. Fortunately, no one could hear my voice as everyone was shouting and running. Who is it? What is the matter? What? R13 turned around. His sprinkling lips were trembling. He apparently thought it was one of the guardians. I do not want, I won't allow. Put her down at once. But he only sprinkled angrily with his lips, shook his head, and ran on. Then I am terribly ashamed to write all this down, but I believe I must, so that you, my unknown readers, may make a complete study of my disease. Then I hit him over the head with all my might. You understand? I hit him. This I remember distinctly. I remember also a feeling of liberation that followed my action, a feeling of lightness in my whole body. I 330 slid quickly out of his arms. Go away, she shouted to R. Don't you see that I think that was supposed to say go. R13, so it would be go away, she shouted to R. Don't you see that go? R13 showed his white Negro teeth, sprinkled into my face some word, dived down and disappeared. And I picked up I 330, pressed her firmly to myself, and carried her away. My heart was beating forcibly. It seemed enormous. And with every beat, it would splash out such a thundering, such a hot, such a joyful wave, a flash. Let them below there, let them toss and rush and yell and fall. What matter if something has fallen, if something has been shattered to dust? Little matter, only to remain this way and carry her, carry and carry. The same evening, 22 o'clock. I hold my pen with great difficulty. Such an extraordinary fatigue after all the dizzying events of this morning. Is it possible that the strong, salutary, centuries old walls of the United States have fallen? Is it possible that we are again without a roof over our heads, back in the wild state of freedom like our remote ancestors? Is it possible that we have lost our well doer? Opposed? On the day of the unanimity, opposed? I am ashamed of them, painfully, fearfully ashamed. But who are they? And who am I? They, we, do I know? I shall continue. She was sitting where I had brought her, on the uppermost glass bench, which was hot from the sun. Her right shoulder and the beginning of the wonderful and incalculable curve were uncovered, an exceedingly thin serpent of blood. She seemed not to be aware of the blood, or that her breast was uncovered. No, I will say rather, she seemed to see all that and seemed to feel that it was essential to her, that if her uniform had been buttoned, she would have torn it open. She would have. And tomorrow she breathed the words through sparkling white clenched teeth. Tomorrow, nobody knows what. Do you understand? Neither I nor anyone else knows. It is unknown. Do you realize what a joy it is? Do you realize that all that was certain has come to an end? Now things will be new, improbable, unforeseen. Below, the human waves were still foaming, tossing, roaring, but they seemed to be very far away, and to be growing more and more distant. For she was looking at me. She slowly drew me into herself through the narrow golden windows of her pupils. We remained like that, silent for a long while, or for some reason I recalled how once I had watched some queer yellow pupils through the green wall, while above the walls birds were soaring. Or was this another time? Listen, if nothing particular happens tomorrow, I shall take you there. Do you understand? No, I did not understand, but I nodded in silence. I was dissolved. I became infinitesimal, a geometrical point. After all, there is some logic, a peculiar logic of today, in this state of being a point. A point has more unknowns than any other entity. If a point should start to move, it might become thousands of curves or hundreds of solids. I was afraid to budge. What might I have become if I had moved? It seemed to me that everybody, like myself, was afraid, now of even the most minute emotions. At this moment, for instance, as I sit and write, everyone is sitting hidden in his glass cell, expecting something. I do not hear the buzzing of the elevators. usually at this hour, or laughter, or steps. From time to time, numbers pass in couples through the hall, whispering on tiptoe. What will happen tomorrow? What will become of me tomorrow? All right. We will be back with we next week. I appreciate y'all listening, and I hope y'all are still enjoying this. We have a couple more weeks of this novel to go.